Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Charge from the EV Geek podcast. We're your hosts, Joel and Sebastian. And today, October 11th, 2024, we've got a handful of topics on board, such as the death of Ultium, $1 billion for charging, and more. And before we get started, Joel, you had a little announcement you wanted to make.
So we forgot to mention this on the last podcast because we recorded it out in the field. So our last podcast on the Mustang Mach-E was episode number 50 for us. So that deserves a round of applause, I believe. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. Yes. And I'll finish Sebastian's line. Without further ado, let's plug in and get started.
So our first surprising topic, or at least it was a surprise to me, was that GM has killed Ultium. It's not as bad as it sounds. So GM has announced plans to kill off the Ultium brand for its batteries and EV technology, and instead is planning to move towards model-specific battery packs. Currently, Ultium platforms use modular battery designs, with the only differentiator between models being the number of modules installed in the pack. So, you've got your 12 module battery, and your I think the Lyric has the 12 module battery, and then the Silverado is just two of those 12 module batteries stacked on top of each other, and then they remove modules as you move through the line. But generally it's the same battery architecture. They're moving away from that. They're going to move it seems like they're going to be moving towards what everyone else is doing, where they build a model specific pack. And on that subject, GM is planning to explore offering LFP packs in more of its cars instead of the NMC packs that have been in most of its vehicles, as well as moving to a different cell design using prismatic cells instead of Ultium's current pouch config. GM believes offering LFP packs will be able to drop the cost of the EVs by up to $6,000. GM plans to open its own battery development center in Michigan, targeting a 2027 opening date. So this was just super interesting to me that Ultium's not been around very long. GM had like 2 years in a row they bought Super Bowl ads trying to promote the Ultium branding, and now they're going to move away from it. I think it's interesting that they've maybe decided it's more cost effective and easier to do a model specific battery design versus kind of a modular one size fits all battery. I kind of would expect maybe one size fits all would be cheaper to produce, but I guess maybe they've learned, and that's maybe some of what we've seen, the kind of struggle to ramp Ultium over the many years. I think they're finally getting in the groove, which makes me a little concerned that they're going to finally get in the groove and immediately stop doing it, but we'll see.
So I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we all know the one negative thing about EVs is the cost, and the major cost of EVs is the battery. So anything they can do to reduce those costs makes sense. And like you said, they struggled with Ultium for 2 years getting it up and running. I mean, they had issues at the beginning, back to the Hummer, then had issue with the Blazers being bricked. They just couldn't figure it out on their own. It's basically what they were doing. They were trying to do it on their own. And it's just more cost effective to go with these LFP batteries. It just makes sense. I mean, I think I said in an article they can reduce the cost, like you said, up to 50% per battery pack instead of it costing about, it's instead of costing, a lot of money for those battery packs, they can reduce those costs, and hopefully they'll pass those costs, which they should, onto the customers. And I think GM realized you didn't have to create, and they have some right now. Not every car has to be 450, 500 miles. I mean, you can get away with a 250 to 300 mile car. Most people can use that daily, and even when they're traveling, that's plenty enough range to get by. So I think moving to these LFP batteries, moving to that range of 250, 300 miles, which mostly, Teslas, Fords, most of those cars already have, is a smart move financially for them.
Yeah. It's also important to note, too, that they're not completely abandoning NMC packs. They do still believe that there is a place for NMC in the industry because, for example, NMC packs usually have higher energy density. So in your vehicles where you just need a big old battery, it makes sense to use an NMC over an LFP pack. Also, because it has higher energy density, you can usually get a little bit more oomph out of an NMC battery versus LFP packs. So I wouldn't be surprised if GM wants to do a performance electric vehicle. It will probably not use an LFP pack. Yeah, and there's also the thing about LFPs of on one hand, you can charge them to 100% and just treat them like absolute crap every day. But on the other hand, they perform worse in the winter. They require, for example, on that Mach-E that the Mach-E's, the LFP pack cars get a stronger heater because it takes more heat to warm the LFP pack, and the LFP pack is more sensitive to temperature.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how an LFP pack would work in a Silverado. So
yeah,
so
it's also important to note the LFP pack might affect the tax credit eligibility of the vehicles, because currently most LFP packs are not sourced from a North American country. They source a lot of the minerals are sourced from China or other conflict nations, and so who knows? Maybe that's one of the why they plan to open their own battery center in Michigan, is to try to then be able to regain eligibility for tax credit later. But that's all going to be big picture plan for GM, which I wouldn't be surprised to see it change again in 6 months.
Yep, it probably will. You're right.
Sticking with GM, though, GM has announced the 2025 Silverado EV with new trims and new battery configs. So for 2025, GM has launched as well the new LT trim level, which is kind of your middle trim now between your work truck and the RST. So the work truck now has 3 battery sizes available, with the standard range starting at $57,000. However, we don't have an EPA estimate for the range yet. But when we talk about the other 2 trim levels, I imagine the EPA estimate for the standard range is still pretty solid.
Yep.
The extended range work truck is EPA rated for 422 miles, and that'll cost you $70,000. And the max range is 492 miles, which is crazy.
Stupid. I don't know many gas cars that go that far, unless you're driving a Prius.
492 mile work truck will start at $77,000. The LT trim is offered in only one battery size, so that's the extended range. By the way, I hate the battery naming for this. You get standard range, extended range, and max range. This feels like it's a perfect place for small, medium, large. Anyway.
Yep. Small pack, medium pack, large pack. Just call it that. I mean.
Anyway, the LT is available on only extended range config, which is on the LT trim, good for 408 miles EPA, and will start at $75,000. The RST stays largely the same, but you now have the option to save a couple bucks and get the extended range battery in the RST, which will save you about $8,000, but cuts your EPA range from 460 miles down to a measly 390. It's also cool to note the LT trim still has a peak charge speed of 300 kilowatt, even though it's on the smaller battery, and can still tow 12,500 pounds, and will be available at the midgate. So that's the one thing. The work truck is supposed to be the one that you're supposed to use for hauling crap, but you can't get the midgate on the work truck.
So yeah, I mean, this when you're looking at trucks, EV trucks, this is actually a truck. I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. You can tow with it. It gives you large range. I mean, in comparison, the Cybertruck Foundation Series, for $100,000, that's all you can get right now. It's your cheapest model. It's only going to get you 340 miles of range and only 11,000 pounds of towing. So for less money, you get, what is that, 120 more miles of range and more towing. And that's a truck. Like you said, you can put the midgate down. You can put those 12-foot 2x4s through there if you need to move stuff around it. So this is actually a practical truck. And I was able to ride in one you weren't able to do at that time. We ever take one for a test drive. It's a nice, comfortable ride. It rides like a nice truck. It rides similar to the F-150 Lightning would ride or something like that. It's just a comfortable truck that you could take on a long trip, that you could haul. Has the huge battery in it, which is why I can get this far. So yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. I'm glad that they're extending kind of the range on these vehicles, and actually making it available for people who need an actual work truck but want an EV.
Yep. It's important to note, you mentioned the Cybertruck. So it's, 340 mile range. It is doing that much more efficiently than the Silverado does.
Yep.
I believe the Cybertruck has a 123 kilowatt hour battery pack to get that 340 miles of range.
Yeah.
Whereas, the 492 mile work truck Silverado, yes, it's 492 miles, but it's doing it because it has like a 220 kilowatt hour battery.
Yeah, it's got almost double the size that you're going to be sitting at a supercharger for a while, pumping energy into that thing. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Lightning has 130 kilowatt hours for the 300 mile version. And the Rivian, I think the max pack is 140, I believe.
Yeah, 140, 150, 160, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's much larger than all of those vehicles.
Yes, it is.
And really, the Max Pack Rivian is supposed to, which I mean, I guess Rivian is a smaller truck. It does weigh less.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, isn't the Max Pack Rivian supposed to be rated for 420 miles?
I
Something
think
like
I
that.
believe it's over 400. Yeah, I don't know the exact number,
Yeah.
but you're right. It's over 400. Yep.
But that's, again, efficiency.
And it's a lot small. Like you said, it's a lot smaller than the Silverado truck too, and the Cybertruck.
Yep. Moving on from GM, Hyundai has officially opened their Georgia EV plant. On October 4th, which was last Friday, Hyundai officially opened its new $7.6 billion EV plant in Georgia, with the first customer 2025 Ioniq 5s rolling off the line. Hyundai completed this project in under 2 years, which is honestly a truly impressive feat, especially when you hear, again, $7.6 billion.
Yeah, they're building them like Tesla now. 2 years.
Yep. The plant is expected to create around 8,500 jobs for the area, which is excellent. And they're also investing an additional $5 billion in an EV battery plant in collaboration with SK On. Currently, vehicles built at the plant will qualify for the partial tax credit of $3,750. However, once Hyundai brings the battery plant online, they expect the vehicles to qualify for the full $7,500. Hyundai is also planning to build the new Ioniq 9 at the Georgia plant, but details are still scarce about that one. They haven't really let too much info out yet.
So yeah, we kind of knew this was coming. We've done a couple articles and a couple podcasts about Kia. I believe they're making Kia's also, Hyundai. Kia's part of the Hyundai Middle Group. They're making the EV9s there. I don't know if they're making EV6s there, but I believe they are making the EV9s there. So yeah, this is awesome. These cars will eventually qualify, hopefully for up to $7,500 tax rebate. If not, Hyundai and Kia are just giving out $7,500 tax rebates now too. I actually was curious today and looked at it. So yeah, awesome. I'm glad they're doing it. They're ahead of a lot of the other manufacturers that are doing this. So kudos to them.
Yep. Sticking with Hyundai, Waymo has announced the Ioniq 5 will be its newest robotaxi vehicle. So I was kind of wondering about this, since the Jaguar I-Pace has been discontinued, what was Waymo going to use next? And so it's cool to see they're going to use the Ioniq 5. It makes sense. It's a good crossover. It's a good size, whatever. And their vehicles are going to be built at the same Georgia plant. And Hyundai has quoted that they are ready to allocate a significant number of vehicles for the Waymo fleet. That's not very specific, so I don't know how many vehicles that they actually plan to do as part of this partnership. But it's cool to see because, there are quite a bit of Waymo I-Paces and Waymo Chrysler Pacificas on the road. So hopefully there'll now be a lot of Waymo Ioniq 5s and they can make the tech better and better and better.
So according to the article, there are currently, it says 100,000 trips per week in the 4 U.S. cities of San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, and Austin, where Waymo has access to do this with. But you are right, the I-Paces are getting old. Is that the ones with the fire issues we talked about? Or those the E-Pace? I can't remember. So yeah, they have the fire issues. So yeah, it's a solid car to use. Especially, those Ioniq 5s can be adapted for self-driving capabilities. It's going to go through some road testing for a while. And Waymo, who's, backed by Google, is going to get this right. And I'm glad they're doing this. I'm glad they're partnering with Hyundai to get these cars out on the road, driverless cars out on the road.
Yeah, same. I didn't realize they operated in Austin. Maybe we can ride in one because I'm curious. You didn't make that connection yet.
Ooh, I didn't make that connection yet. Yeah, the article says here San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Austin. So yeah, maybe we can find one and just drive around the city in it for a while and do a little video on it. So yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, moving on. EVGo is receiving a $1.05 billion loan to build 7,500 DC fast chargers. A lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's the same price it costs for Hyundai to build their plant. Not as much, but yeah.
EVGo has been awarded a conditional offer for this amount, and they're supposed to be building around 7,500 DC fast chargers with this. The loan is coming from the U.S. Department of Energy, and if finalized, they're expected to begin installing the chargers in the second half of 2026, and the deployment will be complete by 2030. EVGo will have to satisfy certain technical, legal, environmental conditions before the DOE will actually give them the money. EVGo is estimating that this project will create more than 1,000 jobs, with around 700 of these being roles in construction and engineering, which is cool. It's good to see more like, trades type jobs being created, especially in the EV space,
Yeah. So what units did EVGo use for their charge? Do you know off the top of your head or not?
So typically, from what I've been seeing, most of their new installs are the Delta high power units.
Okay.
So that's what they
cool.
put in over at, in Bryant here.
Mm-hmm.
Those Delta high powers that'll do 350 kilowatts. And then if there's 2 cars plugged in, they split to 175 each. Yep. So I'm assuming that is probably what they will continue to use, unless maybe they decide to switch to something like an Alpitronic or other super high power charger.
Yeah, this is cool news. I'm glad EVGo is kind of turning it around. We've heard some issues with other charger companies like ChargePoint having issues, issues with FreeWire going out of business. So I'm glad EVGo is kind of stepping up to kind of challenge like EA, for the tier 2, as in superchargers, kind of like behind Tesla's. Hopefully their software and these new chargers will run them more effective than EA. But I've also heard reports that EA is starting to come along around with their software and hardware as well, not having as many issues as before. Let's hope they can do what they need to do to make this conditional loan happen and not have any setbacks, because we all know the one thing holding back EV adoption is infrastructure. So the more chargers we can get on the road, the less people will have range anxiety to charge their vehicles. So kudos. And it looks like in the video, in the picture, they're charging a Bolt, so you'd be happy with that.
Super high power.
Well, a white, they're at the 350. It's one of the bolts at the 350 that everyone loves. So yeah.
Yep. Moving on to the less exciting news. Maybe we'll see. I shouldn't be too harsh on it. We don't know yet. No, Toyota and Subaru are planning. Toyota and Subaru are planning another EV together.
I don't think I should do the clapping for that.
So Toyota and Subaru, who previously developed the BZ4X, Solterra, and Lexus RZ, all 3 of which made it on our worst EV list,
we'll probably make on another one too. Yep.
Announced that they plan to release another co-developed SUV in 2026, and the new SUV will reuse components from the BZ4X and Solterra to save costs. Now, again, we can't be too harsh on it because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, yes.
But I really hope that Toyota and Subaru have learned the shortcomings of their current vehicle.
Yes.
And will use that knowledge to make a better car.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of flack on that video saying, oh, what we were saying is wrong. We just pulled it straight from the Toyota and Subaru and Lexus websites. It's not like we just pulled these charging facts out of the air. Like, hey, you can only supercharge it, a couple times before it stops doing it for you. Or it takes forever to supercharge and it goes down to 50 kilowatts an hour. What bothers me is you stated they're going to be using components from the BZ4X and Solterra. Those cars are like, by the time you get to 2026, those cars are going to be 3 and 4 years old. So you're using 3 and 4 year old technology and parts in a newer vehicle. That doesn't make sense. And according to the article, their goal is to produce 15 to 20,000 of these per month. That's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cars. So
that said, I believe 15 to 20,000 is how many Solterras and BZ4Xs have been sold so far in 2024.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's not a lot.
Yeah. But they plan on doing that per month. I mean, so they're going to ramp up here real quick, it looks like.
Yeah. My favorite comment on that video, by the way, that you're talking about was in the comments, one of the reasons we had, or in the video, one of the reasons we listed it was there's tons of reports of owners never getting anywhere near what Toyota said the peak charge rate was on the car, which is supposed to be 150 kilowatt. And so one of the comments was like, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I fast charge my BZ4X all the time, and I've never seen a peak higher than 94.
Yeah. That's not higher than 150.
That's exactly what we said.
Yes.
Anyway, that was fun. That was a lot of fun going back and reading those and saying, wait.
Yeah. So if you have some time over the weekend, go back, watch why you shouldn't buy these EVs from. Why you shouldn't buy these EVs is actually one of our best viewed episodes out there. I think it's up around 35,000 views right now. Go and you'll see which ones make the list. Hint, it's these 2 vehicles are on that list. So.
All right. And finally, Ionna, I'm assuming that's how I'm supposed to say that.
Ionna
broke ground on their first Rechargery. So Ionna is the charging firm backed by auto manufacturers BMW, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, Stellantis, and Toyota. So, like, almost everybody.
Yep.
But they have broken ground on their first rechargery in Apex, North Carolina. This first station is being built in what was formerly an old gas station and will offer 10 covered parking spaces with Alpitronic Hypercharger 400 stations capable of delivering up to 400 kilowatt. And they plan to have NACS and CCS ports available. So
Awesome.
The station itself is going to be converted to a driver's lounge offering bathroom, food, drinks, Wi-Fi, etc., which is JT, congratulations. You did it first.
You set the standard, JT.
Everyone is now following after you.
That's right. If you're coming through Little Rock, stop at JT's. Start with Franklin Charge. You get yourself some coffee in the mornings. There's someone there to serve it for you. So yeah,
You'll
this is
notice
cool.
it's a very similar design.
Yes, I'm looking at the picture. It's very similar design, and both of his are in old gas station. This is really cool. I mean, they've been talking about this for a while now. Hopefully it doesn't turn out. You know, I've seen reports at the Kettleman, if I'm saying it right, Kettleman station out in California, where it's kind of empty now. That used to be like Tesla's like flagship supercharger station, where it has a lounge and a gift shop, and you can buy stuff. And
so
now
allegedly Tesla is going to be remodeling.
Yes,
the
that's what they said when someone posted
allegedly.
It. They said,
But yeah, they didn't say anything about it until someone called out that, hey, everything's gone. What the heck?
Yeah, you got bathrooms and chairs, and that's it. Looks like someone just came in and just ransacked the place and stole everything. So hopefully these are up and running. Hopefully the chargers work. But these are pretty cool. Look, hopefully we'll get some here in the South. Probably won't. I mean, not in the South, here in Arkansas. This one's going to be in North Carolina. But yeah, these are cool. I'm glad all these companies are working together to put these out there, and they're kind of futuristic looking and kind of cool looking.
Yeah, and they plan to deploy, it says, 30,000 charge points by 2030. We'll see.
Yep.
But, I mean, hey, we could always use more charging. I have heard, I think the second location they plan is in Houston. And it's a similar design of, I think that one's going to have 8 stalls, same Hypercharger 400s, and then, again, a little lounge area with food and snacks and whatnot.
And pet-friendly amenities, according to the article. Yeah, so I guess a place to let your dog go to the bathroom as long as you clean up after it. So.
Yep. All right. Well, that is a wrap for today, Friday, October 11th. Thanks for plugging into the Friday Charge. Be sure to subscribe to the EVGeek podcast on YouTube and tap the notification icon to be notified when we have new releases. We have some great content that released this week, including a look at the F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E GT. If you have any thoughts or questions, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So long, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode of the Friday Charge.